Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. I wish you health and happiness wherever you are watching us from. And this is my honor and pleasure to welcome you to the LeadSpeak focus group discussion initiated by Valor of Bangladesh, where we bring the leaders of Bangladesh across the sectors, where we are bringing every leaders in a one space to discuss the industry challenges of that individual sector and what are the opportunities lie ahead to take our country forward. So today we are going to have a discussion on a very interesting sector, which is digital commerce. And before I move to introducing to our speakers and the panelists, let me enlighten you about this initiative of Valor of Bangladesh. And this initiative has taken a month back, where we are having series of discussion on different industries. We had discussion on healthcare, we had discussion on MFS, we had a discussion on online banking and multiple area and diversified topics. And from that discussions, we are going to hold a strategy summit in coming months, where we will be bringing all the outcome of these sessions. So I believe this will enlighten you with different opportunities and different challenges of the sector, but at the same time, where we are bringing the best of the country leaders, and I believe with their visionary thoughts, you would be able to take the learnings and apply in your workplace as well, which will help us to take the society and the country forward. And our event is basically powered by Aga Khan Development Networks, and it is presented by one of the leading banks, Habib Bank Limited. So without further ado, I'll be starting the session by introducing our panelists. So on my right, I have Syed Almas Kabir bhai. Syed Almas Kabir bhai is a Bangladeshi business leader and ICT entrepreneur. He is the former president of BASIS, and he is the director of FBCCI, and is also currently the president of Bangladesh Malaysia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. But most importantly, on a personal note, he is a big brother in the ICT industry that we all look up. Almas bhai, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
And we have a very interesting panelist with us. We have Naeem Anis with us, who is currently the commercial director of Daraz Bangladesh. And Naeem here, he is in Bangladesh for 2 years assignment with Daraz Bangladesh, where he would be responsible to reshaping the entire commercial strategy of Daraz Bangladesh. Before joining Daraz Bangladesh, he headed different functions across Daraz Sri Lanka and played an instrumental role in shaping up the commercial strategy of Daraz Sri Lanka as well. Anis, welcome to our event.
Thank you very much.
And finally, we have Zeeshan Kingshuk Huq. Zeeshan bhai is a very familiar face of our ICT industry. He's the co-founder of the leading B2B business e-commerce platform called Zindabad.com, which raised more than $6 million US dollar in recent times from different capital ventures group across the world. And Zindabad is the name when it comes about B2B e-commerce. They are the market leader who is serving this B2B market, and eventually who is helping and contributing in the economy of Bangladesh to a greater extent. Zeeshan bhai, welcome to our show. So, before I will be starting with Almas bhai. Almas bhai, as today our discussion will be fully focusing on digital commerce and in this sector. I was reading an article at Financial Express a couple of days back and found that currently this industry stands at around $2 billion, the market size, which was $0.65 billion maybe in 2016, so only 5 years back. So it grew like anything. And ECAP also states that from 2014 to 2019, it experienced 100% growth. So when an industry is actually growing at such a phenomenal rate, we believe that this industry has a lot to do when it comes about employability. As one of our key area of strategy summit is to focusing on employability investment opportunities. My first questions to you is that, what do you think, how this surge in e-commerce is going to help the economy to reduce the unemployment rate that we recently experienced, and how it is going to generate more employability in coming days?
Thanks again. You rightly said that in the recent times, the digital commerce industry has grown manifold. And especially during the pandemic time, because of the lockdown, the people started buying online.
Yep.
Everything was, our lifestyle was actually based on technology, and everything we were doing online, all the meetings and the judicial system, everything went online. So we started buying online, and that has shown, I would say it has tripled the sector, what it was before. And another very good encouraging thing is the payment system. Because we are talking about digital commerce, I'm not only talking about online buying, but also the online transaction, online financial transaction. That also doubled, actually more than doubled during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we used to see about 15% of online payment, and the rest were like cash on delivery. But that online transaction, that digital payment grew to 30 to 35% during the pandemic.
Right.
So that is also a very important thing in this sector, the digital commerce sector. Yes, it has generated a lot of employment. Just think about the logistics, the delivery part. Because of this expansion of the sector, because of the popularity of the sector, we needed more and more the logistic partners and the delivery personnel. That became a new job for the young people of the country.
Right.
So that is one area where the digital commerce has definitely, I would say, contributed towards the employability. Another thing is that because of the internet penetration all over Bangladesh, as you know that we have right now 130 million internet users. So that also has, I would say, played a big role, because people from the remotest area, from the villages, from the mufassals, from those areas, so they have started selling their products online. So they have also joined the digital commerce bandwagon, and from wherever they are, all over the country, they started, as I just said, that they started selling their own product. Even the housewives, they started selling, pickles, they started some handicrafts, selling their handicrafts, and so on. So that also generated a lot of, I would say, employment or self-employment.
Yep.
And all of these started contributing to our economy. So I would say it has definitely played a big role, and it will continue to do so, provided we can support them with the right ecosystem and the right infrastructure.
Okay. Almas, just a quick follow-up question on that. You talk about payment partner, you talk about logistics, and you have rightly mentioned that these are the avenues of e-commerce ecosystem where the employability opportunity lies. But at the same time, I would request for a very quick answer on this. Where do you see the skill gap? Like, yes, there are opportunities here, but when you talk about employability, do you see the skill gap still there in the market when it is about finding the right talent in the right place?
Well, again, very, very right. You see, we have a very young population, and the average age of the population is below 28 years. So this is a very able, capable workforce. Problem is that most of this workforce is actually unskilled or semi-skilled. Yes, there is a big skill gap in all sectors, not only in digital commerce, but in all sectors. In digital commerce, when we talk about the potential of digital commerce, we must need to know or understand the requirement of application of technology. And when we talk about application of technology, we need skilled people, technically skilled people.
Right.
There is a gap on that. But the advantage of digital commerce is that, as I was talking about, like the logistics part, because you need many people to actually physically, deliver the products. So that is a huge area. So in those parts of the digital commerce sector, you really do not need high skilled people. You can train a person for 2 weeks or maybe one month maybe, and make him or her semi skilled, and they can join the workforce in the digital commerce sector. So that is one advantage of this sector, and that is why we really want to encourage this, because as you know that we have 3 million educated unemployed people in Bangladesh. So we really need to cater to them, and because they do not have the skill, high skill, they can undergo a very preliminary or very rudimentary training, and they can join this logistics and other related roles in the digital commerce sector. And of course, if they have a very basic accounting, little business training, they can also start their own businesses in a very small way, very small scale way, maybe in a cottage industry way, but at least they can start contributing to the economy. So this is one area, as I was saying, that you really do not need high skills, but with a semi skill you can start working. But yes, you need high skills, especially in ICT, if you want to really expand your business, because you need more and more technology in these sectors.
Okay, thank you, Almas bhai. I'll be coming back to you again. I'll be moved to Anis. Anis, Almas bhai was talking about different components of the digital ecosystem. Like we have payment partner, we have infrastructure, logistics partner, logistic platform. He also talked about the skill and the human resource as well. So these are the key components of the entire ecosystem of digital commerce. And he also talked about the internet penetration, because at the same time you need more people. We want more people to be connected with the internet, because at the end of the day the consumers are the key. So the more we can bring consumer under the radar of this digital space, the industry will flourish or thrive. Having said that, you came from a different country. Where you see the similarities or the gaps, if I talk about this kind of an ecosystem with Sri Lanka, what are the, from your perspective, what are the gaps you can say, where we are ahead of you, where we lag, and what could be the best practices you can suggest that we can take from that ecosystem? Where do we stand? And as definitely you have joined us for next 2 years where you will be contributing, there must be a reason for you to explore this market. So how do you relate with that?
Definitely, but thank you. It's a very good question. Let me start by saying the beauty of digital commerce is common around the world. It is connecting people to products without human intervention. And the automation of this process, starting from marketing to sales to product delivery, is consistent across all the nations that we are in. So I wouldn't actually say that there is a difference between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, the way we approach digital commerce. But what I would say is we are marching towards the same journey. We are marching towards the same outcome that we want from digital commerce. Now, if you take, for instance, I think both the countries right now is investing heavily on urban development, investing heavily on logistic connectivity, investing heavily on employment and education for people to understand the importance of digital commerce. There is no difference in skill gaps, as clearly mentioned. These are very easily taught things. So even if you look at our organization, Daraz, we have couple of programs where we bring in fresh graduates to the organization, teach them the whole space of ecosystem, and then they become to managers, and in time they learn the whole thing. Sorry. See, the beauty of digital commerce is the access of information right now in today's age to people allows them to learn skills that what they want. Employment is merely the drive they have within themselves to try something new. So the only key difference between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka is the difference of the amount of people that they have to impact. And there comes the population.
Yes.
So the change that is expected from Bangladesh is at 164 million people, whereas in Sri Lanka it's 22 million people. Sri Lanka's literacy rate is high. That makes it easy for us to teach, to educate, to grow the skill sets that's required. Whereas in Bangladesh, with such a vast population in this country, it's not going to be an easy task. But if you also see, Bangladesh has been the top 5 most resilient, COVID resilient countries in the world. When the whole world was hit by pandemic, people, organizations, government was looking at different ways to keep them on float. Whereas in Bangladesh, this country grew, the GDP grew. So looking at that, what we can clearly see that it is very strong in identifying and understanding that progression is important for everything. So all in all, I would say that because of the way that the government is looking at the future, because of the development, the construction projects, the road projects, the metro projects, all of this is happening for a better tomorrow. And I am very confident that Bangladesh is going to see a better digital commerce age very soon.
Thank you so much, Anis. As a very, very rightly pointed out, you talked about the investment as a very key factor which is driving the growth of this e-commerce. And talking about investment, I'll move to Zeeshan Kingshuk Bhai. Zeeshan Bhai, if I recall one of my profound memories a year back, when Almas Bhai also was a part of that, when I was in Daily Star, we initiated an event called the Daily Star ICT Awards, where we actually recognize the best of the best companies who are doing excellent piece of work in across different domain of ICT industry. And the company that you co-founded, Sindabad, where Sindabad clinched the ICT award in 2020 for amazing results in different numbers. If I talk about GMV, if you talk about the valuation of the company, and we are successful in raising the investment. The foreign companies like Abishkar, if I'm not wrong, they are coming to Bangladesh and investing, and this kind of confidence that they have for the local startup, and you played a very instrumental role over there. But after that, if I look back, like right now in 2018, Daraz was acquired by Alibaba. But what's your thought on actually? Is it happening much frequently, or it's like something it has become a very one-off event? Yes, we saw investment coming in, like we saw Sequoia invested in 10-minute school, Shajgoj, ShopUp raised a lot in Series A, I guess a couple of months back. It's happening, but do you think it is happening at the pace which it should be? Or it should be more faster, even if I compare to India. And recently we saw how Shark Tank, the program becomes so much viral in India, the way they have designed the event. Even we started this kind of like Tiger Cage or something like this kind of event, but we don't see this become viral in social media, or we didn't see that much of hype. So what's your thought on this?
Thank you so much, Tazin. First of all, I would like to again extend my heartfelt thanks to you and Daily Star, because I think you people have brought a fantastic event, the Daily Star ICT Award, which is kind of an encouragement to the entire industry to do better things. And I know how crucial you have been behind the whole thing. You kick-started it. Thank you, and obviously Mahfuz Anam Bhai and the whole team of Daily Star. Coming back to the investment issue, so Sindabad stopped raising investment in 2019. That was the last that we have raised investment, and by that time, I mean between 2017 to 2019, there were only 3 companies who could raise more than $5 million in investment. I think 3 things we have to keep in mind. Number 1, digital commerce does not necessarily mean e-commerce. That's a very common, startup doesn't mean e-commerce. The other day I met this gentleman, a BBA graduate from IBA, who's buying residues of coconut from Lalbagh Chemical Perfumery Works, who make the hair oil. He's buying those coconut skins, and he's then crushing them, processing them, and then selling it to Milkvita in Pabna, because they are used as a cattle feed. So that's also a startup, come on. So startup can be anything. But if we are talking about digital commerce can be e-commerce. Digital commerce can be For example, education app, digital commerce can be simple AI-based solutions as well. So we have to broaden that mentality. That's number one. Number two is we have to get out of this mindset of valuation game. Yes, both are right. I'm not saying valuation game is not right. There will be companies who will be going into a valuation game, raising their valuation and raising and constantly be in a negative for anything between 8 to 11 years. That's one game. But you see, at the end, if you are asking for a sustainability, then why don't you look at making your business successful just like any other simple business? In any business, what do? You invest a little bit of money, I mean, not little bit, but you invest certain amount of money. You expect the business to break even in terms of OPEX within plus minus 2 to 5 years. You then expect it to break even in terms of entire investment within 5 to 8 years. That's the usual style, right? So why don't we look at businesses in that manner? So instead of going for valuation, I think the companies need to first target on becoming cash positive. Once you set your mindset into becoming cash positive, correct, then you don't have to worry about investment, but investors will come to you.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing. Once we had I was just discussing with Anis prior to this discussion that we also went into making Kiksha, which was a B2C company, and it had a fantastic brand name and pull and everything, and we were one of the top 3. But when we realized that we will not be able to compete with Daraz and we cannot be the first in the vertical, and in e-commerce every vertical only allows plus minus 1 to maximum 2 players, everybody else dies. So once we decided, we should not be spending our bandwidth both in terms of management, technical and financial bandwidth. I'm not going to invest into Kiksha. So we wrapped it up, concentrated into Sindabad. In 2020 itself, between January to December, it doubled up. Then again in 2021, between January to December, it again almost doubled up. So the growth has been phenomenal. But why? Because we have put our entire mind into it, trying to making it cash positive. And because of that growth, we are getting investors, right? So that's number 2. Number 3, I was in a forum the other day with some UK investors, and we had American investors as well. And over there, one of the investment fund manager was saying that whatever Bangladesh focus funds they are making, they are up to 5 times oversubscribed now. So this was not the case in 2018 or 2019 when he first started it. His initial investment was with Pathao. And we all know Pathao, Ilyas, etc. is a poster case for Bangladesh. But at that time, Sindabad, Pathao, Shohoj, XYZ, etc. They were raising money. I mean, Sheba XYZ, etc. Everyone were trying to raise money. But that time, the difficulty was much bigger. Currently, the world knows Bangladesh. They know what's happening here. They know the potential. And they know that it is an underrated investment scenario. What we are missing, the funds are oversubscribed. What we are missing is the connection. How do we package the business? How do we show the right elements in the business? Are we compliant enough in the business or not? These are some things. So we just need to make sure that the bridge between the intended fund versus the entrepreneurs are met. But again, I will go back to the second one, that don't think about valuation game, rather think about making your company cash positive. That should be your first concern. If you can do that, then you don't have to worry about fund. Fund will run after you.
Yep. Thank you so much, Zeeshan bhai. I'll come back to you again. Before we move to the second round of questions, just for the audience, I think I would love to share my 3 takeaway from this first round of question is that Almas bhai talked about connecting the dots. It's like in an ecosystem, you have to rightly identify what are the components there. For digital commerce, is the infrastructure, logistics, payment partners, internet penetration, all are important. So we really need to bring all the relevant stakeholders aligned to achieve the vision of this digital ecosystem. Anis talked about the population of Bangladesh, that he talked about that we got 160 million plus population. some of the challenges, how we can educate this population for a better tomorrow. And finally, Zeeshan bhai talked about the valuation, and it's a very important thing that he talked, that cash positive. And as startup is surging like anything in our country, young professionals are running after startups. So I think this is very important to get the understanding of cash flow, cash positive and EBITDA. Because if we focus on valuation game, the key objectives of forming a startup will get missing. So it's very important to always have a check and balance and always see the bottom line of the P&L, how the cash is doing, how the profit is doing as well. So if I now move to the second round and the last round of the questions, Almas bhai, you mentioned about the payment partners, you mentioned about the 30% growth of payment during the pandemic, online payment. We are using the different MFS channels. But recently, you are also aware that last year we had a lot of industry controversy, the trust issue that happened with the e-commerce platform, the digital commerce platform. And for that, there was a statistic said that between the month of July and October, we saw a fall of online payments, a drastic fall. That people lost their confidence and they started to, again prefer the cash on delivery. At the same time, on the contrary, we are talking about cashless society. Addressing that issue, Bangladesh Bank was saying is that to implement the escrow system. But escrow system, is not very much positive for the small SME entrepreneur who are going to, their cash is going to start on the system. So now, what's your thought about it? And what point we are saying that cashless society is needed for a better digital Bangladesh, and at the same time, this trust issue. So how to restore this trust and how to have a very policy-friendly system which can help the industry to thrive?
Okay. Very, very important question that you have just raised. There are two parts of the question. I'll try to answer in two parts. Escrow system that the government, the Bangladesh Bank is trying to establish is not a new thing. It has been around all around the world for a long, long time. Many, many years, many, many decades actually. And it has worked very, very successfully in all over the world. I still think that escrow system is required in Bangladesh. The problem was that whatever system that the government, the Bangladesh Bank rolled out a few months back to address the escrow was not really an escrow, it was a half-baked policy. And whenever you go out with a half-baked policy, lots of problems arise, lots of controversy arise. So that was the biggest problem. Bangladesh Bank should not have done that. The policy, I was also in the committee, in the escrow committee. So the committee did not come up with any particular guideline or rules or regulations. So they wanted to roll out something, and so that they did. But it is a very good thing if we can formulate the guidelines very, very clearly.
Okay.
Very important to this escrow to be successful is the integration of technology. Just for an example, when the delivery person gives or delivers the goods to the buyer, that buyer or the delivery man will generate something from the device, and that will automatically go to the escrow system, and the escrow system will release the money to the merchant.
Okay.
So this is, but for this reason you need some technological integration, some API and so on. So this has not been done, and because this has not been done, a lot of problems started accumulating, and again people got confused about escrow. So escrow system can be very successful, and it has been proven all over the world, for a long, long time. So this is one part. The other part is, you said that how to make sure that we are on the right path towards a cashless society. Yes, we did see a setback in the online transaction, online payment system during the last few months because of the controversy in the e-commerce sector. Um, you see, the government has to step in, and the government can take a few steps to incentivize the digital transactions, such as I have been very, very vocal about excluding VAT, the value-added tax, on any kind of online payment. So if somebody buys something online and pays through a digital system by credit card, debit card, or by mobile financial services, that transaction should be they should not have to pay the VAT. That will incentivize or motivate the customer to pay not by cash on delivery but by online, digitally. So that is one way. Another way is because we saw a little surge in the digital transaction, people did understand the value, the ease of use of digital transaction. The government can put a little push, a little nudge by mandating that all government fees, like all the utility bills, whenever you take a government service, you pay the passport fee or the license fee or the trade license, whatever, all government fees must be paid through a digital way. Either by credit, debit, online transfer, bank transfer, or MFS, something like that. No cash will be allowed. If government can do that, you will see that a huge rise in the digital transaction, digital payment system within a very, very short time. And another thing that, again, I have been advocating for a while now, and I did have a meeting with the Honorable Governor of Bangladesh Bank and also the Finance Secretary. What I really wanted to say is that government can allocate a fund for the next 3 to 5 years, and from that fund, government can give some cashback incentives to, suppose there's a transaction happening, and as soon as it happens, both the buyer and the seller will receive some cashback. So suppose the government allocates that for every transaction there will be a 5% cashback. 2.5% will go to the seller, the 2.5% will go to the buyer. So both the seller, the merchant, and the buyer will be encouraged to use any digital transaction mode, they will not prefer a cash system. So that will also encourage or push the entire country towards that goal of a cashless society, or maybe not a cashless, maybe a less cash society. And that will give a big jump. And the government can announce this only for the next 3 to 5 years, and they can have a separate budget for this particular cashback. So I think this is very important. Incentivization has to be done. Talking about earning trust or regaining trust in the digital commerce or the e-commerce sector, I would say that it will happen. I am very optimistic. People have the government has identified a few rogue players, and the government is taking care of that. Of course, people who have made or lost money, that's a sad case. You really cannot do anything about it, because they were also not careful when they were buying things or investing in these schemes. So that's a different issue, actually. That's a different debate also. But I am very optimistic that people will regain trust, because there's there's an additional reason, because nowadays we are seeing that large companies, reputed companies, they are coming into this digital commerce. And I think that will give the consumers a very good confidence, and they will start buying from those places. This trust issue is, you understand, this entire digital commerce, the e-commerce actually thrives on trust. If you do not have trust, you will not buy online. So I think we really need to be very, very careful. The government has already formulated a few guidelines, an SOP. The government must ensure that these SOPs are implemented rightly. There can be a digital commerce monitoring cell that that is in the talks. That monitoring cell must be comprised of different stakeholders from the government, maybe like Ministry of Commerce, maybe the police, maybe the Consumer Protection Directorate, and also the industry. So that monitoring cell can monitor, but of course it will not be possible for them to monitor all the transactions, because you see, e-commerce or digital commerce is not only one sector really. Every business is actually falls under digital commerce or e-commerce, and every business will have a digital presence very soon. So a monitoring cell or government does not have the capability, or it is not possible to monitor all companies or all transactions. So it needs to be done is to popularize the consumer protection hotline. You know, we already have a hotline. I think it's 16121 or 16125. I don't even remember. So this is bad. That number has to be popularized, just like we have done that with 999 or 333. That number has to be the phone number has to be popularized, and people must be made aware. The consumers must be made aware that if you face any difficulty, if you think you are, there has been a fraud, you must call this number. And whenever they get this kind of complaint, the monitoring cell can step in. But this number, not only popularizing this number, the government also has another bigger responsibility, that is to educate the consumers. Of course, it's not only the government, the industry also has the responsibility to do that. They must make the consumer educated that how to buy online. Whenever you see a very attractive deal which is too good to be true, maybe it is too good to be true. So you have to be very careful. You have to, whenever you buy something, you have to read the terms and conditions very carefully. So all the do's and don'ts of online buying. So that is needed. That awareness needs to be created, and both the government and the industry, they have the, I would say, the responsibility of doing that. So if these can be done, I think the trust will come back and people will start buying online more and more.
So I will interrupt here, and I'm not going to take the 13 minutes that President Sir has taken. I'll take 3 minutes. Okay. First and foremost, at the end of 90s-এর শেষের দিকে 2000-এর শুরুর দিকে আমাদের দেশে সিএনজির ভিতর ছিনতাই বেড়ে গেল। আমি বাংলায় বলছি, and আমি নিশ্চিত ফেব্রুয়ারি মাসে বাংলায় বললে আপনারা আমাকে বকা দিবেন না, আমি ওকে পরে ট্রান্সলেট করে দিব। ছিনতাই যখন শুরু হলো তখন শেষ পর্যন্ত কি করা হলো, ছিনতাইকারী ধরা হচ্ছে না, ছিনতাই হয়ে যাচ্ছিল। বলা হলো তখন যে না, তখন তো অটো রিক্সা ছিল, সিএনজি মাত্র এসছে, সিএনজিতে তখন বলা হলো গ্রিল দেওয়া হবে, মনে আছে? তার আগে কিন্তু কখনো গ্রিল ছিল না। সো এসক্রো সিস্টেম ইজ লাইক দ্যাট গ্রিল for the e-commerce industry, that we couldn't really handle the root cause, so we have put some grill so that at least বাইরে থেকে কোনো ছিনতাই না হয়। While escrow system is a good thing, but e-commerces have grown within escrow system, the world doesn't have too many examples to start with. But then again, maybe for Bangladesh, escrow system is the only one. Having said that, I must also congratulate one thing, and this is where I will possibly slightly contradict with President Sir, is that government actually took an initiative and came forward in taking a step. ঠিক আছে, একটা escrow করি, and industry has been talking about it, যে escrow করলে maybe that would be a solution. But the good thing was when the problem got very big, that's when the government actually came forward and took a step. Unlike many other sectors, in this particular sector, especially in ICT and digital commerce sector, I personally feel that the government of Bangladesh is far more proactive. I mean, considering we don't pay so much of taxes to the government. I mean, the largest tax is paid by the government's owners and the tobaccos and the telcos. We are peanuts to them. And compared to that, the amount of emphasis the government has put in our ecosystem, I must thank the government on that. Having said that, my third thing comes. What did, you see, at the end, it's the private sector that has to take the lead. We can always blame everything on the government and say government didn't do this right, that right, etc., etc., etc. But we also have to, I will put you a simple question. So the 6 leading card companies, I have said it in front of Almas Bhai in other forums as well. The 6 leading credit cards in Bangladesh in the year 2019-2020 have made a total of close to 600 crore taka operating profit. The 6 major credit cards. Tell me 1% they have used in digital commerce popularizing. Have they? Answer is no. But if you go to the country like, let's say, in India, HDFC Bank is subsidizing exactly what Almas Bhai is saying, that digital transaction need to be subsidized. It needs to be incentivized. Sorry, incentivized is the right word. It needs to be incentivized. Is the bank coming forward in incentivizing it? Answer is no. Why are we asking the government to incentivize 2.5%? Why can't the bank incentivize it? If Bikash can incentivize
actually I was
for paying
asking about that.
So how come banks can't do it?
Bikash is doing that.
Yeah, Bikash is incentivizing for every 2 bills you pay, utility bills, I am going to give you some cash back. But how come Nagad is doing that as well? How come if the MFS can do that, the banks who are making 600 crore taka profit, can't they even invest 6 crore taka in it? So the private sector also has to come forward. Took 4 minutes.
Well, okay. You see, of course, I did say that the private sector has a responsibility, but the private sector is here to do business. The government, because the government has a vision to make a cashless society, the government must come up with some kind of incentives. Government already is giving incentives for exports, as you know, in different sectors. So it's a similar thing. If you want to have a digital economy, if the government invests for the next 3 to 5 years by giving cash incentives, I am sure that government will actually end up gaining more in the later on. I mean, because of the audit trail and everything. Cash transaction does not have any audit trail. So the government will actually get more and more tax. Talking about escrow is actually, it can work in Bangladesh, but problem was, you were right, the government wanted to step up immediately and do something for the sector because it was in big trouble. But again, I really do not think that coming up with something half a solution or a half-baked solution can do the right job. So it actually যেটা বাংলায় বলে লেজো গোবরে হয়ে গেছে। So
I will hold the bull by the horn. ওকে, আমরা তো একদম সরাসরি বলি ই ভ্যালি অনেক বড় হয়েছে এবং ই ভ্যালির কারণে আমরা ডুবেছি, এটা আমরা সকলেই বুঝি। আজকে যদি ই ভ্যালি একটা কমপ্লায়েন্ট কোম্পানি হয়ে যেত এবং ই ভ্যালিতে যদি বাইরে থেকে হঠাৎ করে $150 মিলিয়ন ইনভেস্টমেন্ট চলে আসতো, আজকে কিন্তু স্টোরিটা অপোজিট হয়ে যেত। সো আমরা কিন্তু ই ভ্যালি থেকে বেনিফিট সকলেই নিয়েছি, সেটা মানে ইন্ডাস্ট্রি বডিজ বলেন, মানে তারাও যেমন এগিয়ে এসে অনেক আগে থেকে ভয়েস রেজ করে নাই, আমি বেসিসের কথা বলছি না, বাট আপনি বুঝতে পারছেন যে তারাও যেমন এগিয়ে আসে নাই, তেমনি সরকারি সংস্থাগুলোও আগে সময় থাকতে এগিয়ে আসে নাই, তাই না? একটি নিউজ পেপার এগিয়ে এসছে, বাকি নিউজ পেপার খুব একটা এগিয়ে আসে নাই। সুতরাং বিবেকের জায়গা থেকে সকলেই একটু পিছিয়ে ছিলাম, কারণ ই ভ্যালি হ্যাজ ডিশড আউট কাস্টমার্স মানি এভরিওয়্যার। উই অল আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড দ্যাট অ্যান্ড দ্যাট ওয়াজ দেয়ার ওয়ে। আমি তো মনে করি গভর্নমেন্ট অনেক দ্রুত এগিয়ে এসে জিনিসটাতে যখন দেখেছেন জিনিসটা বেশি হয়ে যাচ্ছে, তখন দে কেম ফরওয়ার্ড, অ্যান্ড আই ডু এগ্রি যে ইট ওয়াজ আ হেস্টি মুভ, বাট অ্যাট দ্য সেম টাইম উই অলসো হ্যাভ টু সামটাইম আমরা তো কোম্পানিগুলিতেও এরকম করি যে অনেক সময় ইট বিকামস necessary to come forward and take a step. You take a step and then things fall into places. ওইটাও অনেক সময়।
No, you are right. As you said that, I mean, এটা একটা তাড়াতাড়ি করে কিছু একটা করতে যাচ্ছে government. The problem was that coming up with the guidelines, coming up with the SOP was a very good thing, no doubt about it. But coming up with a half-baked escrow system, although they are not calling it an escrow system, but whatever they are calling it, that was, I would say, a disservice to escrow. People now think that escrow is a very bad thing, but escrow has been very, very successful in all over the place. আমি একটা ছোট উদাহরণ দিচ্ছি। আমেরিকাতে or in fact any other country, even in India, people are encouraged to pay by credit card to protect the consumer, because when I pay with a credit card, and suppose I am not happy, I can call my bank and I can stop the payment. And that is because of the escrow system. The escrow system is actually built in that we do not know. The consumer does not know, because it's very transparent to the consumer. Another thing, why digital transaction is very popular in US and Europe and other countries. Well, more in US and Canada, because they have limited liability. If you have a credit card with a say $5,000 limit, your liability for a fraud, if there is a fraud of say $2,000, maybe your liability is up to $500. Nowadays, banks are competing, and some banks are giving you offer for zero liability. So even if there is a fraud, the consumer is not even liable, or maybe liable only up to $500. So the consumer feels encouraged to use more and more credit cards. Here in Bangladesh, we are like always afraid. The banks are always paranoid. So you need to call the bank and say, "Bhai, amar eta ekটু খুলে দেন, activate করে দেন, আমি একটা transaction করব." They will send you OTP 2 times, 3 times, 4 times.
Makes things so complicated.
This will never, make the digital transaction popular.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
The government, as you rightly said, the banks, they must invest in technology. If they do not invest in technology, they will not be able to make these transactions, digital transactions, popular. If they invest in the right technology, they can ensure security by not making all this hassle for the consumers. So that is actually the key for success. Do you think, when you go and, transact with a credit card in US, they do not even, touch your credit card. You can just tap your credit card and pay, and they do not even look at your credit card. Here, the bank will actually, ask for a PIN or, OTP or all those things. So, do you think that those banks are callous? They are not. They have invested in security. There are other security measures. So our banks must invest in security. I know I'm like digressing.
My opinion in this. So the example of CNG protecting the people inside. If you take a step back and see what are we discussing, we are discussing customer protection. End of the day, how far as a customer do I feel safe to transact, to use my credit card on my credit bills and all this? How beautiful is the system integrated? So coming back, it's very easy to blame organizations or blame the government to take, the step, drive the community towards it. How I see it is education. Coming back to education, simple as it is. If I was going to purchase, do I know what to purchase? Am I looking at the right things? The people or the merchants who is selling the products, do they know the right thing? See, I would say that I'm lucky over here, mainly because I'm working with Alibaba. And Alibaba being an organization in different countries around the world, we take the best practices. We have something called Daraz University. What it does, it teaches merchants how to sell a product, what to do, what not to do. So we take, the strong foot forward and teach the customers, when you're buying a product, look at the reviews, look at the seller ratings, ask questions. We have technology given to them. Go ahead, ask, is the blouse that I'm going to buy for my wife, is it exactly as the picture? So education is key. Same thing happens to fintech. As long as we understand that we have to educate people in every different way. What's the biggest difference between Bangladesh and USA? People know, people don't know. If we cross that bridge, and I'm sure we will because of these discussions that we're having, opinionated discussions, you're saying something very valid, you are also saying something very valid. I think if we cross the bridge with education, we are definitely moving towards success, and that's my opinion on this.
Consumer awareness is the key, and both the government and the industry have the responsibility to make the consumer aware.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Almas bhai. I have to skip your question now because you have answered my question. I was coming back to you with when Almas bhai was talking about awareness and education, and yes, what Daraz is doing with Daraz University. So rather not asking about the education part which you have covered, I like to touch upon one thing, which is customer experience, stickiness, because at the end of the day, we educate them, aware them, but like Almas was saying, send the OTP for 3 times, and I personally, when I'm going to make any transaction over $100, I have to call them, okay, they kept it open for 7 days, for how many days? So it's kind of a very, you know, the experience that I have, the consumer touch points and experience, which is very important. So I know this is a bit of off track, but as you covered the education bit, just a very quickly, as we are running out of time, because Alibaba, you said yes, the technology, if you talk about technology, consumer protection, education, they are far ahead of the game. We are trying to implement all the best practices here. So what about the consumer experience?
See, the beauty of digital commerce, or whoever is in this space, it's very easy to assess where we are as an organization. Different indicators, for instance, revenue could be one, active users could be one, number of people coming into your platform, stickiness. All these are indicators, or what we call it the output KPIs, to see where the business is progressing. The most important thing is stickiness. Stickiness is confidence, in other words. I am going back to the platform. I am going to open myself to new experience on that platform. And for us to understand how stickiness works, it's very important for organizations to know the change in consumer demand and consumer mentality. Now, I'll take a very good example, TikTok. The highest downloaded app in 2021, 694 million. Why? They understood that the attention span of the new generation, or the people who is having so much access to information, is shortened. And they made a product for that. They understood the shift. Now, in my experience, we being professionals in our industries, we should be able to identify this and also give this back to the customer. So here comes Daraz with a good example. We have something called live stream, which is also UGC content, where the merchants is able to communicate with their customer through UGC, through videos, and tell them, you know, gain confidence. And that is a way currently mass mediums is using to reach customers. So why don't we do that as well? Why don't we have live stream? So we do. In this, merchants are able to, okay, let's say I am an organization that is manufacturing quilts. I'm very excited about my microfiber product. I want to talk to consumers. What's the normal way of marketing? Why don't we take TikTok learning experience, use it in platform that has millions of people coming into it, and reach out to the same customers? Stickiness is a combination of doing the right thing and also ensuring engagement is there in the platform. Gamification is something that is picking up very, very quick in Bangladesh. The games, the number of youth that is into Call of Duty, PUBG, Free Fire, everyone loves it. So this is our consumers that we're trying to get end of the day. So you have to get them to your app or to a service provider's app to get them very excited to it. So we have something called Daraz Coins, which is basically browse a product and win coins. Share a product and win coins. Follow your favorite store. Let it be Walton, Singer, whatsoever, and win coins. So because of these engagement activities we do, we are able to understand how to bring back the customer and keep the stickiness. It's all about trust.
Thank you, Naeem. I think the experience, education, and protection all should be there. My last question to Zeeshan Kingshuk Bhai, coming back to the discussion that we are having in between. You talked about eValley, that 150 crore investment can come. The story could
million,
be the story could be other way around. Don't you think whenever the responsibility also lies with us as well, with the industry leader as well? Because why? When there isn't any investment raise, we make this news like, it's a huge media break. We celebrate the fundraising and everything. But after that, where that organization is heading towards, whether it's making money or not, whether their business movements are going into positive direction or not, we are not following up. And in that process, we saw many business getting out of the picture. So is it something we are doing cautiously, like celebrating all the fundraising, but how now they are focusing on like this consumer protection, customer experience, and all these, I think creating a mass market, building the audience, expanding the audience. Are those things missing? What's your thought on that?
Okay, first and foremost, whatever I'm going to say is very personal opinion. So in my personal opinion, we don't need any other court or judgment other than the customers. Okay. The customer is my ultimate court. They are the ultimate judge. If I can if I can give them proper service, if there is a dissatisfied customer, if I can return their money very quickly and replace their product very quickly, if there is a disputed transaction, if I can kind of mitigate the dispute within the shortest possible time, if I am to return the money into their Bikash account or XYZ account, if I can do that within next 72 hours, customers will always be happy with me, and that is the biggest verdict that you can get. I don't think any government, any association, any industry body, blah blah blah, can do better than that. That's number one. Having said that, do we have a responsibility? Well, you see, Daily Star, for example, has an award for identifying the right people. So awards are a way of sort of encouraging compliance in the industry. I can imagine that there will be other things coming up. So the awards and things are there. People don't want to talk about the bad things if I'm faltering, right? And that's where the legal framework is there. In that case, I personally feel that I actually would concur with Almas Bhai in that the government needs to kind of have a focus. One thing that Almas Bhai did not mention, but me as an industry person can mention, the policies are being made by people who are not doing a digital transaction. They haven't really gone through the entire customer journey, so they don't know exactly why they should put $100 cap or not. They're thinking, so you see, so maybe we need a small unit in the government side or the policy making side who can not only, who should come as an enabler and not as a police, but more of an enabler. But part of the enabling job will also be policing, setting the SOPs right, setting the compliance factors right, etc., etc., etc. So that's my take, very simple put.
Very valid point. We have to put consumer in the heart of the ecosystem, but at the same time, we also need to educate them. Why? Because if we give priority to the consumer demands, nowadays the consumer demands is getting a bike at the price of 20,000 BDT, we can't sustain.
No,
so,
consumer doesn't demand that. Trust me, consumer doesn't demand that. Consumer at the end, you see, Chaldal charges prices slightly higher than the wet market. That was the perception. But people are still paying for it. Why? Because of the convenience factor. And today, Chaldal is actually spreading over all over the country. And defying the belief that Mofoshole Lokjon online kinbe na. But that's happening. So customers will, and customers are not, don't think, I mean, there will always be some part of the customer who will always want to take the shortcut and win big.
Yeah.
But majority customers understand that if it is too good to be true, then it's not true.
Yeah. So then we really need to focus on the experience and the convenience, so that this consumer market get expanded. Almas Bhai, Naeem and Zeeshan Bhai, thank you so much for your time. So for the audience, I think we had a very fascinating and a very insightful discussion. So I have shared my takeaway for the first round of discussion. On the second round, we talked about the escrow system. A proper integration of technology can actually solve the outcome that we are expecting out of this system, which is contributing to regain the customer trust and making things more transparent. We talked about the consumer experience and the stickiness, how we can bring the most optimum level of experience at different touch points of the consumer journey. That's why we talked about the policymakers also need to go through that journey as well. So I believe the industry, which is now stands at $2 billion market size, and we are expecting to make a $3 billion in coming years. I believe it is only possible if we really put the consumer in the heart of the ecosystem and plan our game accordingly. So thank you so much for listening to us, and I believe we would come up with more interesting discussion in our coming webinars under the banner of LeadSpeak, join in an initiative of Valor of Bangladesh. And thank you so much for listening to us.